Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe. This is episode 156. I want to have a wonderful chat with you. This is going to be for those of you who have 4, 5, 6 plus stone to lose. Okay? Now I want to preface this because it's important for me that this stuff comes across properly. Now, the people who work with me are already familiar with me. They already know how I talk. They know that everything that we do never comes from a place of judgment or criticism or shame. It's designed to help, and that works really well. Like, I can count on one hand the amount of times that, of working with thousands of people over all the years, I can count on one hand how many times someone has taken something the wrong way, and usually there's someone who's been brought in by a friend, like someone who does not know me, has never watched a reel, hasn't read any Instagram posts, has never read an email, has never listened to a podcast episode. Their friends brought them in and they've went, God, who is that? This guy's very cheeky to me. He's very rude. So yeah, people who are unfamiliar might not get me completely. So if you are new to this podcast, please understand that everything we're going to talk about, it's just factual, right? It's fact-based information. It's not said to criticise. I'm not trying to be mean. It's, if anything, it's designed to open your eyes. Because you don't know. What I mean by that is, like, so the whole basis, this comes off the back of a check-in that I did yesterday. I'll paint the picture for you, right? So I have a client who is £277, something like that. Which is, oh shit, I calculated it yesterday. Is it 18 stone? Damn it. I need to check my calculator. Please hold. I'm not really going to hold because I hate stopping the microphone and having to piece it back together. 277 divided by 14, 19, right, okay, nearly 20 stone. If you are 19 or 20 stone, right, you don't need me to tell you you've got there because you eat a lot. But it's not just that, right? That's logical common sense, right? You have not reached that weight by eating salads. You have reached that weight because you have a series of excessive consumption habits, probably not just from food. There's likely liquids involved as well. It would be challenging just to get to that level of weight purely with food alone. But yes, right, you're aware that you eat a fair bit, and that's part of the reason why your weight is where it is. But we need to look beyond the obvious. So this conversation I had with someone yesterday, if I'm working with someone who is 19 or 20 stone, their weight should start, on paper, their weight should start flying down. And that does happen in many instances. You give people calorie figures, you give them nutrition figures, you give them things to work to. There are some cases that person will come back to me after 2 weeks and they'll be down 4 pounds. They're going to be someone who's losing 2 pounds a week. And on paper, that's how it should be, right? If you have a reasonable amount of weight to lose, it should start to come off pretty quickly if you get things set up in the right way. Then there are instances where people will lose weight very slowly, not lose weight at all, or maybe even go in the opposite direction. Now, when that happens, you know that that person is a million miles away from what they're supposed to be doing. And this is when I have conversations like this. Because, yes, we understand that you've overconsumed. We understand that you've reached the weight that you are because you've eaten a fair bit, maybe drank a fair bit, not just alcohol, maybe fizzy drinks, energy drinks. Maybe you have 3 or 4 lattes a day at 200 or 300 calories each. Like, there's multiple calorie sources into your day. And it's pretty consistent throughout the day. You know, we spoke about this before about, you know, you wake up and you have a snack while you're making breakfast, then you have breakfast, then you have a mid-morning snack. Then you jump in the car to drive somewhere and you've got sweets in the car door, and then you stop at a drive-through for a coffee and that coffee comes with a pastry. Like, you've got all these piggybacking habits where there's a consistent flow of calories coming into your day. So this person in particular has been away tracking for 2 weeks, and she has come back and she's 0.5 pound heavier. So I can't remember, like, She was down to like 270 and now she's up to like she was 270 point something. She's now up to 271 point something, right? A half a pound increase over a 2 week period in a person who should be seeing the scales coming crashing down. So I looked at her tracking looked great. But she said, but I've had 2 busy weekends. And this is the part. This is where it gets really interesting and important for people who have a significant amount of weight to lose. Now, I've already recorded an episode very similar to this. I'm not really going to talk about that. But if you go back into wherever, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and go to the search bar, if you type in Clancast roadblocks, it will show you that episode. It's like 121 or something like that. That would be an excellent one to catch up on. It's very similar to this, but I'm going to talk about something slightly different. I'm not going to go into that stuff. So she's had a busy couple of weekends. She went to Lady Gaga in London. It was during Storm Amy, and it was a stressful journey, and she didn't get there till like 5 a.m, and I'm sure she was meant to have gotten there the day before, obviously. And then she said, so I hit the wine. And that's the bit I want to focus on, because if you have a significant amount of weight to lose, you have excessive habits, but you perform them at scale. So her idea of hitting the wine might be drinking 3 bottles of wine. 6, 12, 1800 calories. Then all the things that you do under the influence. Then all the things that you do after the influence. Someone else's idea of hitting the wine might be having half a bottle. Do you see what I mean? These things are only a problem when they're performed at scale. And this is what I meant at the start about how you don't, if you are one of these people I'm describing, you don't know what it means like to live at a lower scale. Like, if you are 17, 18, 19, 20 stone, then chances are you've been overweight for a long time, maybe since childhood. Because you don't just get to that weight overnight, right? It's something that takes a long time. You've been going through the process of reaching that weight over a period of years, meaning you've been living like this version of yourself for years, which also means that living any differently, if you are someone who was much lighter in their teens or their early 20s, you've lost touch with that. Like, you don't remember how to live like that. And this is why it's so fucking important to understand that your weight loss journey is not just going to be one single thing. You're not just gonna come work with me and I'm gonna say, here are your calorie numbers. These are going to take you from 20 stone to 12 stone. It will not work like that. Like, there is probably like a 1 in a million person who goes through that sort of journey and then goes on to maintain it. Your weight loss is going to come in phases, in stages, in dribs and drabs and bits and pieces. You're going to lose your first 3 stone. And this is what that other episode's about. I'm not going to dive into this too much, right? But you're going to lose your first 3 stone, and then you're not going to be able to get any farther, because you're going to reach a point where your lifestyle, the way that you do things, does not allow you to move further beyond that. Then you'll have to start looking at things and where you're going to make changes. So, for example, this person that I'm talking about, they're tracking for the days that they did track, which was like Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday each week, not the weekends. Their tracking looked like their weight should be flying down, but it didn't. It went up by half a pound. That tells me how excessive their weekends are. So, and because this person's very new and they've not yet tracked a weekend, I haven't yet seen what the impact of a weekend is. But I can run the calculations and know that we're talking 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day across the weekend. Now, that might sound like a big figure to some people. Some people freak out over different numbers because they have their own personal experience with it. But again, it comes back to, you do not reach 18, 19, 20 stone by eating 1,200 calories a day, or 1,800 calories a day, or even 2,000 calories a day. It's coming from excess, at scale, with frequency. So it could be that you order, let's say that you're tired and exhausted all the time, you've got a challenging job, you're stressed, You feel like you don't have any time to do food shopping or to cook meals, or the last thing you want to do is cook a meal, so you order takeaways, and you're doing that 5 or 6 nights a week. Fine. Nothing wrong with ordering takeaways. You could eat a takeaway 5 or 6 nights a week and have it do absolutely nothing to your weight. But then it's the scale. Your version of a takeaway. I had a takeaway last night. Okay, my version of a takeaway is that I would probably get something to share with whoever I was ordering with. Or I would order a small portion of something. Because I know what size takeaway portions are like. I also understand the expense. And how likely I would be to not want to waste it. So I might keep it to have like the next day or something. You know, I wouldn't order a pizza for myself and then a pizza for someone else. It'd be like, okay, well, let's share a pizza. What do you want on your half? And I'll get a different topping on my half. Whereas I know from working with so many people what everybody's individual experiences are with takeaways. I know there are people who turn their takeaways into a banquet. They order they'll go to the Chinese and they'll order the mixed starter. They'll order a portion of soup. They'll order rice, but they'll also order noodles because they like rice and noodles. And then they'll order their main, which is whatever curry. Then maybe they'll have some sides. And, you know, they're sitting down and eating a 3,000 calorie meal for their dinner when they only burn 2,000 calories a day and we've not added lunch and breakfast on. So this is the challenging thing. Like, not all weight loss clients are created equally, because not all weight gain is created equally. Some people gain a few pounds because they start a snacking habit in front of the TV at night and they freak out because they've gained half a stone. Other people eat continuously throughout the day. Not like it's non-stop, like constantly eating, but it's like you never get a break from it. Like I said, it's that pattern of waking up, coming downstairs, putting, you know, I've got a friend who's spoken to me about this, who struggles with their weight. And she doesn't need me, she needs counselling, and I've told her that. She does not need a nutritionist or a diet or anything, she needs to speak to someone. And when I describe that pattern of eating, that's me actually describing something that I know a friend goes through. Wakes up in the morning before anybody else is up, husband's in bed, kids are asleep, makes herself a coffee and has 3 chocolate mini rolls. Wrappers go in the bucket, nobody knows about it. And then everybody gets up and then they'll have breakfast together. Then once breakfast is done and that's all cleaned up, then it's a mid-morning snack. Then it's jumping in the car. Doors lined with sweets and chocolate and things. Stopping at drive-thrus to get a coffee, but only it's not just to get a coffee, because you know every time you stop for a coffee you get a muffin or a cookie or a pastry. You know, I said this in the last episode, I think, like realistically, we're probably going to eat 5 or 6 times a day. If you eat meals, you don't have to eat 3 meals. But I'm just saying that for the most part, most people are going to eat 5 or 6 times a day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe a mid-morning snack, maybe an afternoon snack, and then maybe something with a cup of tea at night or sitting in front of the TV, right? Do that, eat until you're hungry, eat until you're satisfied, stop when you're full, have a balanced diet, make sure at least one of those snacks is a piece of fruit, that's it. You'll have no issues with your weight. But people who reach higher levels of body fat, they're not eating 5 or 6 times a day. They're eating 10 to 20 times a day. And it's not like they're sitting down to 10 or 20 meals. That's not what I mean. They're having their breakfast, their lunch and their dinner. But it's everything in between. The celebrations, they keep, you know, they walk past the celebrations tub in the staff room and stop 5 times to grab 3 or 4 sweets. Every cup of tea they have 2 or 3 custard creams with it, and they're having 5 or 6 cups of tea a day. Every journey they make, they're eating sweets in the car. So that might be home to work, or so like home to school, school to work, work to school, school to home. Is that, wait, wait a minute. Let me count that up. Work to school is one journey. School to work is one journey. Work to school is one journey. School to home. Is that really only 4 journeys? But how is that? 1, 2, 3. Oh no, you are only driving the car 4 times. Anyway, sorry. You get the point. And maybe, so that's 4 times that you're eating 2 or 3 boiled sweets from the packet that you've got in the car or whatever it is. I used to have a client who, one of her things, she wasn't heavily overweight, she had a couple of stone to lose. One of her things was sweets. Well, her issue was that she had cast sugar as the devil. That was literally the word that she used. Sugar is evil, sugar is the devil. I don't keep it in the house. So what did she do? Stopped at shops. She didn't realise this until we spoke about it and I pointed it out to her, but she found reasons to stop at shops multiple times per day so that she could put herself in a position where she could buy a bag of sweets. So I had this job of constant problem solving. So she's like, yeah, I keep stopping at shops to buy bottles of water, but every time I'm in buying a bottle of water, I'll pick up a sharing bag of sweets at the till. Okay, cool. Do you have a water bottle? Yes, right. Fill up the water bottle. Take it with you. But I like my water cold. Cool. Keep the water in the fridge. Put some ice in it. Ice is expensive. Well, you can either make your own or you can buy a bag of it for £1, which I'm sure is cheaper than the £2 or £3 that you're spending each time on the sharing bag of sweets that you keep buying. You know, it's a cheaper investment to protect you from the long-term thing. And then, so we started doing that. And all she did was find new reasons to go to the shop. So deep down, what was really happening was she was going to the shop to buy sweets and she was finding excuses to be in the shop so she could buy the sweets. So then, once we got to that, because she was very, not defensive, but resistant to the idea that she was tricking herself into going, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not stupid. I'm not going to the shop to buy sweets. I went to get bread. I went to get milk. I go to get a bottle of water. Until we started solving all these problems, right? Make sure you've got bread. Make sure you've got milk. Let's start taking our own water. And she still found excuses. Oh, well, I had to stop to get fuel. Was your car empty? No. I just wanted to top it up. You're finding excuses to go into the shop and buy sweets. And then she would eat the whole bag of sweets. 300, 400, 500 calories of Haribo Tang Fastics or whatever. So, I think, now that I'm talking about this, I don't think there is enough support for people who have a lot of weight to lose. I think there is far too much generalised support for people who want to lose a stone or 2 stone or 3 stone. And I feel like I'm quite uniquely, not qualified, I'm qualified anyway. I think I'm uniquely experienced and enlightened. And while I will never understand what it means to be heavily overweight, I have worked with enough people who are, that I can understand it. And I spoke about this in the episode. I hear about a lot of the struggles and the challenges, the things that people worry about. I really wanted to go to the theatre, but I'm worried about how much room I'm going to take up. I really want to go to this lovely local cinema, but it's a very old building, and I know the seats are tiny, and I don't want to bump into the person. I don't want to feel like I have to buy 2 tickets so that I've got room to spread out. I want to be able to travel. I want to fly. I had a client who she could have flew around the UK for a job, but she was horrified about her weight and what that would mean, like fitting into a seat on a plane. So she preferred to drive everywhere. And what did she do while she was driving? Ate in the car. So it's... Your weight loss journey is going to be different. Because it's not just about eating a lower number of calories. It's not just about a calorie deficit. It is completely rewriting the way that you socialise, the way that you snack, the way that you drink. Like I said, this person didn't track at the weekend. And they said they, quote unquote, hit the wine. Now, they know what that means. But I don't know. I know roughly what it means, but I can't see the impact of it. Nobody ever admits to having 10 glasses of wine, or 12 gin and tonics, or 13 pints of lager. Nobody says that, ever. Everybody says few drinks. Every single person I have ever spoken to, unless you ask them for further clarification, will tell you that, oh yeah, I don't know why the scales aren't down, I only had a few drinks. Now, I don't know about you, but my definition of a few, right, a couple is 2, a few is 3. That's my definition. I don't know if the couple's correct, because you can't be 3 in a couple. That's a throuple. I had a throuple of drinks. Nobody's ever said that to me either, actually. So, yeah, a few, to me, means 3. So I take that to mean 3. So somebody says, I had a few drinks. To me, I'm, okay, well, you've had 3 drinks. That's really not going to impact your weight. And then you find out a few drinks actually meant a few bottles of wine. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So you had nearly 2,000 calories in wine across Friday and Saturday. How many hundreds of calories did you eat under the influence? How many hundreds of calories did you eat after the influence to cope with the hangover? Now we're at 4,000 or 5,000 calories. And that's on top of any other meals or things that you had. And that's just one example. Like, alcohol's the big one. And the problem, and here is the next bloody problem that you need to think about. While you are working, so if we think back to the way that I do everything inside the Monroe Method, right? It is not about forcing the scales to come down. It is not about doing things today to make the scales come down tomorrow. It's, why am I in this position? What are the unique series of things that I do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that keep taking my weight to a place that I don't want it to be? Okay, once we identify that, once we understand the areas that we need to scale back to help us live like a lighter version of ourselves, meaning, okay, so current you is eating takeaways 5 or 6 times a week. You are 19 stone right now, you want to be 12 stone in the future. How many takeaways a week is 12 stone you going to eat? Well, it's not going to be 5 or 6, because 5 or 6 is one of the behaviours that's taking you to the weight you're trying to get away from. So this is one of the things that will have to change. And it's not just, well, I need to start having less takeaways. Why are you having the takeaways? Well, because I don't cook. Right. So that's the thing that needs to change. You need to start planning to go for a shop every week. You need to start planning meals every week. And pick one of the days that week that is going to be takeaway day. You're probably still going to order your large takeaway, and it's still going to be excessive, but you're going to be doing it 4 or 5 times less. And that's going to help. We can deal with the excess of the takeaway farther down the line, but let's just start scaling it back, and that's the other thing as well. You will also have to work on your ability, or you'll have to work on your all or nothing thinking. Understanding that you're not just going to jump from 18 stone to 12 stone, it's going to be a journey. It's going to take time, and it's going to take lots of adjustments. So going from 5 takeaways a week to 2 takeaways a week, like that doesn't really play into the all or nothing thinker's mind, because they think, well, I'm going to have no takeaways. We'll get there, maybe, if you want to, but let's do this. Let's pick 3 times each week where we are not going to have a takeaway. We're going to decide the days that it is. So, for example, here's a little tidbit to throw in. Don't get trapped in the idea that you have to have takeaways at the weekend. I had a client who planned a takeaway every weekend, every Saturday. This is what we do every Saturday. And it was a Chinese, but we also do it at the weekend, during the week. So like if there's a day where I can't be bothered or I'm short on time or whatever, I'll also have a takeaway. But then we'll also have the one on Saturday. And I said, well, see the Saturday one, I get it, it's the weekend. I have most of my takeaways at the weekend. But let's say that you're quite a busy parent and you have clubs on during the week. Is there a night during the week that takeaway might be better utilised? Okay, Wednesday night's a super busy night. We're going to be here. That's going to be a takeaway night because that removes one job for me. I don't have to cook. That night becomes easier. As a result of that, my week becomes less tiring. So be smart when you're deciding which day you want to have takeaways on. Like you don't have to follow this trend that takeaways have to be a Friday night or a Saturday night. They don't have to commemorate the end of the working week. Use them to your advantage. Because the problem here was, this Saturday night takeaway was a fixed point. It didn't ever change. Meaning that any other takeaways during the week were in addition to that. And that meant we were talking about 2 or 3 takeaways a week. So the point is, if you are someone who has a lot of weight to lose, you know that. You know where it's come from. You've got a fair idea about your excessive habits. But what you don't yet know, otherwise you would already be doing it, is how to live like a lighter version of yourself. I'll give you an example. If I get a millionaire, let's say I take a millionaire. Do you remember when they used to do that program where they used to swap wives? Was it wife swap something? And they quite often took someone from like a well-to-do family and then put them in like a house where people, didn't have much money or were on a lower income, and then the other person would go in the other house and they were like, holy shit, like how do you live like this? That's what it would be like. If I swapped lives with a millionaire and a millionaire came to live my life, their default setting would be, well, we're going to go out for dinner tonight and it's going to be a £300 meal. Wait till they find out going out for dinner means going to a local pub and it's like a 50 quid meal. They'll be used to ordering every expensive thing in the menu or the most expensive bottle of wine or champagne until they find out that there isn't enough money in the bank account to cover that. I'm sorry. Like, you could not take a millionaire, someone who had been used to living with millions of pounds in the bank for many years, tell them they're going to make 30 or 40k a year. Tell them they've got to find a way of living on that money when they're used to going to Waitrose and not thinking about how much money gets spent, not thinking about how much gas and electricity they're using. Things just get switched on and left on, not giving a hoot. Realising that they're not going to be able to afford to put money in their Ferrari or their McLaren or afford the road tax or even put a new tyre on the thing. That's a bit what it's like. When you have been so used to living at a higher weight for so long, it's because you have excessive spending habits. And you cannot just magically overnight change that. You would have to gradually learn how to live like a lighter version of yourself. Okay, this is how I've socialised in the past. How is future me going to socialise? I can't just rock up to a pub and order my usual pint and chaser and have 10 of those, then have like 3 bags of crisps and then get some peanuts and then order some food. Do you see what I mean? Like, that's just one example. You will have your own examples, and hopefully from listening to this, you'll be able to start piecing your own examples together. And then the final part is that, although I'm going to come back to something about alcohol in a sec, but the final part of this is building value around it. Because I think one of the problems is you're going to feel restricted. I was going to post something on social media today, I might still do it, and say most people want to lose weight without feeling restricted. And I'm afraid that's just not yes, you can do it without feeling restricted, but it comes down to the way that you think. So if you're having 5 takeaways a week and I say I'd like you to have 1 takeaway a week, you go, oh, but I want to have 5. You're going to feel restricted. But then this is where the mindset work comes in, where you have to have that conversation with yourself and say, yeah, but you wanting to have 5 takeaways is the reason that you're 19 stone. If you no longer want to be 19 stone, then you should no longer want to have 5 takeaways. So you can see why the mindset work is more important than anything else, because once you start thinking differently, once you start valuing things differently, once you start placing more value on your long-term health, your current health, your quality of life, all of these things, not to say that you don't put value on them, there's a bit of a niggly thing here where it's not that you don't care about your health, it's that you're fatigued with dieting, you're exhausted, you're fed up, you hate trying things that don't lead to something going down on the scales. If you're going to change something, you want it to lead to like a dramatic result. So it's very complex. It's not as simple as you don't care about your health. Or like any of these prick personal trainers, like, you don't want it enough, you're lazy, oh, this shit. It's just about placing the value in the right place and then following a process that can actually help you get there. Because your next big challenge is the fucking diet world. Okay, I want to lose some weight. I'm going to go to Slimming World. Slimming World's not going to help you. It's going to ruin you. And then it becomes one more failed attempt. And that just knocks you. It knocks your confidence. Knocks your confidence in the future that things are ever going to be any different. Then you jump on the next thing and the next thing. And the thing I was going to come back to was alcohol, right? Here is something else that you don't want to but need to hear. I would advise you to stop prioritizing alcohol. So something that comes up a lot, and alcohol is responsible for a lot of weight in the instances when people have a reasonable amount of weight to lose. Alcohol is usually a key player. Not always, but usually. And again, this is why I focus so heavily on, like, you know, your idea of hitting the wine versus someone else's idea of hitting the wine. Your idea of socializing versus someone else's idea. Like, your 19-stone version of socializing is this big long list of things, and, you know, one night out is 5,000 or 6,000 calories. Compared to the 12-stone version of you, whose socializing will look very different. But you need to understand that because you perform all of this stuff at scale, because you have these excessive habits, they are you. They're a part of your identity. They're who you are. And when you are trying to change these things, alcohol is going to turn you back into that person. And this is why alcohol is such a bloody problem. It's like fighting with an arm tied behind your back. You know, the amount of people I work with who are trying to work on their overeating, their excessive snacking, their takeaway orders, their relationship with food, their good and bad thinking, their all or nothing thinking. Everything will be going. I did a check-in last week, right? I've had a terrible couple of weeks. This has happened, that's happened, that's happened. And it all started with last weekend. And I'll say, well, tell me what happened last weekend. Well, I had a big night out on the Saturday night and everything fell to pieces after that. And it's like, yeah, so what happened was you brought alcohol back into the equation and it ruined everything. That single night out ruined an entire fortnight because you had a drink. You turned straight back into the old version of you, the version that you're working very hard to try and get away from. You saw that as a failure because that plays into your all or nothing thinking, and your all or nothing thinking told you the best possible thing to do was give up. This might be unrealistic, but the best piece of advice I could give you, if you are someone who is trying to lose 5, 6, 7 stone or thereabouts, is stop drinking for a year. Pack it in for a year. Give yourself a year of having every single day to fully work on yourself, to fully work on improving yourself. Don't let alcohol be a part of the picture. Don't let hangovers be a part of the picture. Because then you're fighting on a level playing field. You're not drinking alcohol, which leads to a loss of control. It's one of the things that alcohol does. You're not reducing your inhibitions. You're not shortening your thinking. You're not becoming a pleasure seeker, because when people drink for pleasure, they are pleasure seekers. And it's not just going to stop at alcohol, because once you're under the influence, you're going to start looking for other things. That's when the Just Eat app gets opened. That's when the snacks come out. That's when you go to the crisp cupboard. It's when the cheese and biscuits and the crisp and dip come out. It's when you start sending partners to the shop or ordering out. You know who you turn into both under the influence and after the influence. And you also know that's a part of the problem. So I'm not suggesting give it up forever, but what I am saying is give it up for 6 to 12 months. Give yourself a fair and equal chance of working on the problems. And maybe you can come back to alcohol at a later date. Nobody has ever came out the other side in a worse position from not drinking. Anyway, to summarise, you are at your current weight because you have a series of excessive habits, thoughts, behaviours, etc. that lead you to your current weight. You probably don't know how to live like a current version of you. To live like a lighter version of yourself. You're going to have to learn how to. You're not just going to find one magic diet that's going to take you from A to B. One thing isn't just going to click and then magically stick. Click and stick, well, that's good. Click and stick. I need to use that on social media. If you see that, you'll know that it came from this episode. Things are not just going to magically click and stick. It is going to be a process. It's going to be a journey, and it's going to take effort. It's going to take work, I'm afraid. And this is why your mindset's more important than anything. You have to get yourself into a position where you are ready for it and you want to do it. And you want to do it the right way. So please know that, this is where comparison becomes a big problem, right? You see people on social media, how did they do it? How did they do it? A lot of people don't have the same challenges that you do. The more weight you have to lose, the more challenges you have to go through, because you have more things going on that took your weight to that level. Like there is no one single thing that led you to your current weight. It didn't just happen because of a biscuit or because you started eating a couple of sweets in front of the TV. It's lots of things. And you basically, the way I've been talking about things a lot in the group recently is that the pathway that you took to get to your current weight, you're basically going to walk that in reverse and you're going to unwind it all. Every habit that took your weight to the next stone, to the next stone, to the next stone, you need to go backwards and meet them all along the way and address them. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. If it has, reach out and let me know. I'd love to hear. Until next time.